This is the I'm Possible Project Show, where we interview real people who have achieved incredible feats in the face of overwhelming odds, showing that impossible is just a state of mind and that anything is possible. I'm your host, Joshua Rivedal. Today, in episode 21, Multitudes of Mental Illness, I talk to Molly Hillary. Let's jump right in. Molly, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I know you from your work, Where I Stand, and you wrote a chapter, a story, in our upcoming book that will be released August 23, 2017, in the Impossible series, Changing Minds, Breaking Stigma, Achieving the Impossible. And your story is so poignant, and I really, you're a great writer, and you've got an amazing story to tell. You are more than a writer, a teacher, a mental health advocate, mental illness even. So if you wouldn't mind, for my benefit, but also for the benefit of our listeners, can you give us a little background on your life, where you've been, where you're going, the Molly Hillary experience?
I don't know, some background. I am going to be turning 28 this week. Yeah, so That's exciting. I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Wisconsin, and now I live in Iowa. super good times, yeah. So most people would probably think it's boring, but I have my little routines here. So it just makes vacation that much more exciting when, you live in around a bunch of cornfields. So, well, that's giving it a stereotype, but it is pretty tame here. Yeah, I mean, I love to write. I have a dog that I rescued from the animal shelter, and she's sitting right next to me. She's just dutifully listening. But
what's the dog's name?
Her name's Pearl.
Pearl. She's like a 75-year-old lady.
She really is, though. I mean, she's like an 8-year-old dog with like saggy skin, and she's totally an old lady. But we love it. So yeah,
she could have had a guest starring role in the Golden Girls back in the day. She could have been their dog. Pearl. She
really could have. She's like a person stuck in an animal's body.
Midwest.
Yeah. Yep.
We're good. You gave us enough. You gave us enough to work with. You don't have to think any harder. It's the end of a long day. It's a Monday.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
This is going to be going out in the stratosphere some other day other than Monday. But everybody out there knows that Mondays are not the easiest day. So we'll give you a pass on this. And what I'm thinking, you grew up in Wisconsin, and then you moved to Iowa, so you've got cheese and you've got corn. You're a Dorito. You're like a cheesy corn chip kind of a thing. So
that's perfect. I've never heard that before.
Well, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Molly Hillary's a corn chip. Cheesy corn chip.
Yeah.
Anyhow, grew up in Wisconsin. And where in Wisconsin, by the way?
Madison, capital.
Madison, okay. You say in your bio that you lived with mental illness most of your life. When was the onset of mental illness number 1, 2, 3, whatever? How did that manifest, and how was it being supported or not supported by family?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. So, it's hard to say when, like, whether I was born with it or, if it was early childhood. I know, so, the first mental illness I experienced was depression. And so the onset of that was when I was around 14. And at the time, growing up, I was always a really, sensitive child. Empathy, just feeling everything pretty intensely, but also looking back, feeling like, I cried at the drop of a hat, and so there's kind of some of that kind of depressive stuff that had been going on as a kid. Once I had kind of gotten on depression medication, I realized, I do have thicker skin than that, and I'm not like falling apart at every turn. So, I mean, I think there were kind of some, I don't want to say red flags, but kind of some, inkling something was going on. And then, around 14, middle school stuff changes, what have you, and just kind of not knowing really how to cope with much and just kind of developing some unhealthy coping skills. And that was kind of the first time that I had experienced feeling like maybe life is too hard, like maybe I don't need to be here, kind of some like passive thoughts of not being here, and I had gone, I think my mom had noticed that I was kind of, I had been engaging in self-harm and kind of stuff like that. And so she'd sent me to a counselor, but no one really named, my experience as depression until I was 17. So for, 3 years, I was just kind of trying to survive. And then, I had finally gotten on, it had kind of come to a head, and I had developed some other mental illnesses. And then, by 17, it was like, okay, what can we do here? So I had finally gotten on medication and gone back to counseling because I quit for a while. And so it was supported on and off in the best way that my family knew how. I found out that my father is on depression medication. So that was kind of a big aha moment, because I think mental illness is manifested in many ways. And I think circumstances, temperament, genetics, and all that. So it was a little bit of a relief to know that, maybe part of this could be just not my fault, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started, was adolescence.
Interesting. When did you find out about your dad being on depression meds?
I found out when I had gone on medication probably 2 weeks before I graduated high school. And at that point, my mom had told me, well, your dad's on the same thing, and he's been on it for 30 years. And I was just sort of I was shocked that no one had told me. I was the baby of the family, so I think a lot of things were kept secret from me, and in an effort to try to quote unquote protect me or whatever. But yeah, I found that out right when when I was starting to go on it, just because my mom was like, if you're ever having issues with it, you can talk to him about it. So it was kind of interesting for me to find out something about my dad that made him human. And so it was kind of a bittersweet, finding out that he struggled also was a relief. And it was also my dad isn't this perfect, strong person. So over time, I've been able to appreciate him so much more. And, we're really similar in personalities and stuff. So yeah, that was just kind of like a little blip of realizing brain chemistry and all that stuff.
So the information wasn't necessarily willingly brought up. It was kind of after the fact.
Yeah. Absolutely. It wasn't right off the bat.
Do you think that made your dad, and maybe even your mom, a little more understanding of what you were going through, rather than, she's going through a phase, or she's trying to get attention, which is what I hear a lot from the parents of young people,
absolutely.
or young people talking about their parents. Do you think that made them a little more understanding, empathetic?
Yeah, I think my journey with mental illness was complicated and confusing for my family, mainly because I think, again, depression wasn't really named for me at 14. And so it was put off as it was a phase, and, she's just going through middle school, typical things. And I was kind of used to kind of putting on a show and saying, I'm okay, I'm better than I am. So for, 1 or 2 years, it wasn't really talked about. And then I had some trauma in high school, and then I started drinking heavily and getting into drugs. And so that was another part of dealing with the depression, dealing with the trauma and all that. And at that point, it was me against my parents. It was, why are you being rebellious? Why are you doing these things? Why aren't you following the rules? Not knowing that I was going through all this internal turmoil until it had gotten bad, and it just hadn't stopped. And I think towards the end of my senior year, my parents and I were fighting almost every weekend about me staying out and whatever, not realizing it was because I was in so much pain, just seeing it as typical teenagers things. And also that's the way I presented it. So finally at the end, in the spring, we were yelling, and I was just like, how do you not see that I need help? We've been fighting every weekend. How do you not see that I need help? And so that kind of, when I just couldn't take it anymore, and I had kind of put up a wall between my parents, but I just was that was my way of saying, I need you. I'm scared down this path of using all the time, and I'm suicidal, and I don't know how to deal with things. And so, yeah, and then I got, then my mom kind of heard me loud and clear and got me on meds, and that's when the whole, and this has happened to your dad, and so once it was kind of framed as something other than, quote unquote, typical teenage rebelliousness, I think that's when I finally was able to get help. It just was a long road to get there, because, I was a teenager. My brain was, your brain's still developing. You kind of want to do what you want to do. And so I think once we named it, it was fine, but it was really hard to kind of, you want to say, I need help, but at the same time, you kind of want to be a teenager, be independent, do what you want. That's what I wanted to do, at least,
right.
Find your way in the world. So yeah, it was definitely a long journey to get there. It was confusing to me that maybe mental illness wasn't really on the table until it was, or until I said something, or until it got so bad that I needed further help. So yeah, I think this was 10 11 years ago when I think we're getting there, in terms of being aware of mental illness and being able to talk about it. But I just, back then, I don't know, I sound old back then, but there weren't people blogging about mental illness. There weren't people really being open about it. So I think for the most part, a lot of people suffered behind closed doors before, I think in high school is when Facebook was even invented for me. So just kind of that kind of deal of society not being caught up to, individuals' experiences. Or that was the long version of
Fine. This is your interview. It blows my mind. Maybe it wouldn't have 10 years ago, but it blows my mind that we have to wait till things get terrible until we do something about mental illness, which is something that's completely manageable to different levels of difficulty. But I live with depression, and I had to not wait because I didn't understand it. I had no parent who was willing to talk about it, no frame of reference, and yet I had to wait until I got suicidal at age 27, 6.5, almost 7 years ago, until I was able to find the capacity to reach out for help. And so it's a little frustrating because I know this still exists, and we still don't want to name it, and we still want to keep it in the closet. And I think you've done enough in terms of talking about the obstacles and the different mental. There's lots of things, and if you named some of it, we'd probably go into depth, but there's no need. But what I'm curious about is, when did this switch flip for you when you're like, okay, I've got this thing going on. I got lots of things going on, actually. And, you went to like the mental illness candy store and took everything out. I'm just kidding. Terrible. But
I do everything big, I guess.
Yeah. Sounds like it. Go big or go home.
Yeah, right.
What made you start this thing Where I Stand, and how did you make the decision to become vocal about what's going on in your head and your life and your body and the chemicals and everything? What made you willing to speak out? Why?
Right, that's a really good question. Once you're in your late 20s, you're like, was that when I was 24 or 22 or 23? It's sad. I can remember every year, 16, 17, 18, but so basically if we're talking about just in terms of like the foundation of writing, like I've always been a writer, I've always journaled, I've always been self-aware and interested in kind of the experience of writing out what's been going on for me. So, I've always had that part of me. I have like 10 journals, and it'll tell a story of my mental illness. So I already kind of had that background of, having a passion for writing. But around, I had been really suffering with mental illness for a really long time. And when I got out so by the time I was 22-ish, I had been to rehab. I had been to several eating disorder treatments, been in therapy for years. I was kind of at this place where I was so educated, so self-aware, so whatever it was. And I just, with Where I Stand, so my friend Erin actually started it. So it's a nonprofit for basically just, it's a lot of blogging and a lot of education and awareness and help for people with mental illness. And I had seen something like on social media for like a call for bloggers, and I had been kind of like messing around with blogging and kind of experimenting with that, just trying to kind of find my voice. But it was really scary for me. This was like me completely silent and hiding my mental illness for years and almost overcompensating. So not just hiding it, but being perfectionistic, still, even in and out of hospitals, getting straight A's and trying to be this totally put together person, feeling really almost inauthentic and having that part of me that wasn't acknowledged, right? Whether it's that imperfect part or that dark part of yourself or whatever, just feeling like I have all this stuff that I don't really know what to do with. And so I had kind of applied to be a blogger, and I started writing pieces once a month on my eating disorder and other things with my mental illness that I had been going through. And I think the biggest part of it, honestly, was just doing it and getting a lot of feedback. The biggest part for me was that it helped people, right? So having it on a platform that was already established, seeing even if it was one comment or one share, it was like, and it was less about my story and just more about feeling like I was a messenger. Like, this could be anybody's story. This is other people's story. And just feeling so fulfilled by the fact that A, I was finding my voice, but B, it was appreciated and recognized, and it was helping other people feel less shame, honestly, less stigma, less shame, more bringing things out in the open. And so when I was writing my pieces, sometimes I almost felt a little not detached, but again, it was less about me and more about like, these are important messages about depression, feeling suicidal, eating disorders that are really important to be talked about. And so after I started kind of writing for them and blogging, then I kind of took on more responsibility and decided to, help me become kind of the blog manager and help kind of coordinate with some of the content of what was going to be put on the blog. So getting to connect with other people that would apply and say, I really want to share my story, and me working with them month to month and saying, here are some topics that we'd like people to hear about, and can you share your experience? I mean, the whole thing with the blog is all you have to do is write from your experience, and kind of just cranking those out and helping that Where I Stand community kind of get a variety of topics, right? So that was something that was important to me, is not just getting pieces on eating disorders, not just getting pieces on depression, getting pieces on all ranges of experiences, mental illnesses, and voices that could be representative, where anyone could go there and say, and could relate to one of the pieces. So yeah, long story short, I think it was just kind of taking that leap of faith one time and putting a piece out there, and then testing the waters, and then just realizing this is really fulfilling. I like writing. I get to work with people, and yeah, I've grown so much from being able to put myself out there, right? Because sometimes in person, like, it's harder for me to be authentic, but with writing, it's there, and I don't have to look you in the eye when you're reading it, and I can be raw and as honest as I want with, for me, very little repercussions. And I think that was always my fear, is what will people think? I think the fear of what people would think about me, and the shame, it was nothing compared to what I felt I got back and what I felt other people were giving me and I was giving them. So I think that community is greater than shame and any of those other kinds of things that hold us back. So it's been great, and it's gotten better with each passing day, I guess.
Well, there's strength in numbers when we kind of get on board with this idea as a collective group. However big that group is, it makes it easier on each individual, because this is still the M word, mental illness. We don't say, it used to be the C word, cancer. Now we say cancer. So we have that opportunity, especially this strength in numbers. And I don't put I take into no small account the fact that for people of late 20s down to early teens, that sharing online in a perceived safe space, which, I'm 33, so I get that piece, and I also get the piece about sharing in person, which is another difficulty and or difference. And so there's benefits to both, but you found a safe place to do it in. And I when people start to share their stories in whatever capacity, whatever issue or topic, it's got to be done in a safe place first. Otherwise, you're just going to crawl back into a hole.
Yes, experience that as well. So,
and I would argue that you are helping. You are getting as much help as you are helping others by sharing your story, by having reactions, people responding positively to the messages that you're bringing to the table. Would you say that? Would you say that? Yeah. You alluded to personal growth. Tremendous.
Totally.
Tremendous. This is the theme of the show. Overcoming obstacles, but doing more than that, turning those lemons from the obstacle into lemonade, and liabilities into assets, and you're doing all that, which is incredible, and I commend you for it, and it'll be interesting to watch as this continues. I think to dig no deeper, but we're going to dig sideways. Let's keep that analogy going. So we're going to dig sideways on this.
Sideways deep.
And I want to do something called the quickfire round. And this is just a fun little segment. It's an opportunity for people to know a different side of you, because we talk about some serious business on this show. But I want to do something a little different, get people to know you. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions. No right or wrong answers. We're just going to have some fun. So Molly, what is your favorite word?
Ooh, lately, it sounds weird, but lately my favorite word is placate.
That is so weird. No, that's fine. That's a great word.
Yeah, I've been using it a lot, apparently. But that's a hard question. Especially for a writer. There's a million words. So what's your favorite word?
This isn't my interview. This is your interview. But my interview...
All right, deflection.
I'm going to say Philharmonic is a good word.
All right.
Philharmonic. So in that spirit, then, Molly, what is your least favorite word?
Oh, that's hard. That's a good question. Maybe come back to it? I don't know. I'm trying to think of words I don't like.
That's not how we roll on this podcast.
Oh, I can't pass.
Okay,
that sounds weird, but I don't really like the word moist. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I just don't like that word.
You and 12 other people, at least 12 other people that have come on this show so far, do not like the word moist. So you're in good company.
We got to get together and have a support group or something.
Yes, and have the driest cake ever, so you don't even have to say the word. Or you just say succulent and have it out of context. All good.
Yeah, the dry cake, yeah.
So somebody decided to make the Molly Hillary story into a movie. They made a movie of your life. We're going to put this on, what are we going to put this on? We're going to put this on Hulu. It's going to be a Hulu original. So if somebody decided to do this, who would play the title role?
Oh, my gosh. The only person I've been told I relatively resemble is Jessica Biel. So I would say her. I don't know what.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
You know what we could do? We could turn this into a mini-series because that seems like Jessica Biel territory at this point, a mini-series. So we're going to make a mini-series with Jessica Biel starring as Hillary. Maybe I'll play your dad. Maybe I'll audition for a couple different roles, but we'll see what we can get. Rad. So next question, who or what is your spirit animal?
Oh, that's easy. It is a lion. I'm a Leo. And I have a big lion tattoo on my arm, and it's a lioness. I wouldn't say lion, but lioness.
Lioness.
Loyal, protective.
Your inner Nala from Lion King.
Yeah. And she actually, the tattoo actually looks like, sometimes people say that.
You're like a singing lion, too, which is like, I don't know, weird. But I dig it. A lioness. All right, last one, Miss Lioness. If heaven exists, if it exists, what would you like to hear God say to you as you enter or as you get kicked out?
Or as you get kicked out?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Nobody ever...
Well, then where would you...
I'm like, I'm going to enter. So you can do whatever you want.
Where would you go? Would you go to hell or would you go to earth? Wherever
you want. This is a fake fantasy interview. You can go wherever you want. Hell, super heaven. You can hang out wherever you want. I don't know.
I guess I wouldn't be getting kicked out, though. That'd be getting promoted. So, promoted to super heaven. When I enter, these are funny questions. I like them. We've been waiting for you. I don't know, like something.
Oh, and he
welcoming,
sings it like in that creepy tone too. All right, that's a creeper.
Oh, I don't know. Just something welcoming. I don't know.
All right. I mean, I don't even know if I'd want to go in after that kind of a greeting, but sure, fine.
Yeah, but it would be kind of silly because it'd be like he's saying it in this like silly way. So it's like, oh man, God has a sense of humor, you know, like God is silly, not like creepy.
I got it. Yeah, so you get to go to heaven with a silly God. I dig it. All right.
Yep. Yeah.
And he'll be singing. We've been waiting for you. So. That's the end of our quick fire round. Molly, what does the next maybe 6 months to a year look like for you? Personal life, business, whatever you want to cover, whatever you feel comfortable sharing. What's going down in your world? What can we expect from you?
Next 6 months, personal-wise, I am...
Only what you want.
Well, yeah, right. Working a lot.
Good.
I would say in a very vague sense, a new beginning, new home. Ideally, when I get settled into both of these new things, I will start writing my second. I've not had any time to write. I'll still be, sharing my first one, but also just trying to start on the second one because writing is just how I decompress, and I just haven't had a lot of time to decompress.
If anyone wants to learn more about what you got going on, or they want to follow your work, or pertains to mental illness and where I stand, what's the best way that people can get in touch with you if that's even possible?
I have a Facebook page, like an author page, just Molly S. Hillary, and I can receive messages on there. And then I have a Twitter, but I'm still, to be honest, I'm still confused by Twitter a little bit. I think I'm just...
So nobody's getting in touch with her on Twitter.
I'm on Twitter. That's just for... whoever prefers that as their platform and has mastered it. I'm mostly on Instagram these days. So I think Facebook I have done a little less of, unfortunately, but you don't have time for all of them, So Instagram, I have a personal one and a writing one. So basically lots of opportunities. My writing one is just at Molly Wright, Molly_Wright. and then Molly Hillary on Instagram. And on my writing Instagram, there's a button for email. So I also have email.
Ooh,
Find me. It's not hard.
Molly, thank you so very much for jumping on today. This was really cool. I'm really glad that we got a chance to chat, have this conversation, learn a little bit more about you and what you got going on and where you've been and where you're going. It's been a real treat. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me, and I'm excited about the book and everything that goes along with that, and just want to thank you so much for letting me be a part of this awesome project.
You've been listening to the I'm Possible Project show with Joshua Rivedal and guest Molly Hillary. I love sharing stories and how to turn impossible into I'm possible. If you want more inspirational stories, our second and third books are in pre-order right now. Changing Minds, Breaking Stigma, Achieving the Impossible, as well as Lemonade Stand. Both contain powerful stories of overcoming tremendous odds. When life gives you lemons, squeeze, add sugar, and pick up a copy of The I'm Possible Project. www.IamPossibleProject.com/pre-order. Thank you so much for tuning in. You're more than a community. You're part of the I'm Possible family. Until next time, sending you lots of love.